Welcome everyone to the first edition of HNMUN podcast series. I'm Setu Sharma, the co-founder of HNMUN, which is a global youth platform where we try to incorporate and do projects in regards with sustainable development goals of United Nations. We create awareness amongst youth and much more. And today we are more than honored and privileged to have Rosalia Arteaga as the speaker for tonight. And Ms. Arteaga was the head of state and former president of Republic of Ecuador. She was the first female minister of education, culture and sports as well as the first female president. Arteaga was secretary general of Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization until 2007 and was the member of editorial board of Encyclopedia Britannica. She serves as a member of Nizami Ganzoui International Center, a global policy think tank composed of current former presidents and PMs, and has contributed on the article of the virus and its economy, and is now the member of a lot of reputed institutions all across the globe. So we welcome Her Excellency Rosalia Arteaga. So ma'am, how are you and how's the situation of COVID-19, first of all, at your side?
Well, thank you. Good morning, or here in Ecuador, good evening, or probably there in your side. Yeah, thank you very much for the possibility to talk with you about such an important goals. About COVID, well, we have ups and downs like in any place. Sometimes more situations, more casualties, more people dying in the hospitals or at home, and it's very sad. And in other terms, we are trying to get more vaccines for the vaccination of the people. We are with a new government, and the new president says that in the first 100 days, he's going to vaccinate more than 50 or almost 50% of the population. Let's see how it goes. It not only depends on the logistics to the vaccination here, but also in the suppliers of the vaccines, because we don't produce vaccines, then we are depending on what the suppliers said. And that's the situation, but we are optimistic about the possibilities of get the vaccine for most of the population, at least the population that has a lot more risks, like elderly people or people that is in the front of the COVID, like doctors and nurses, dentists, and all the medical efforts.
Hopeful that the situation will settle down soon. So ma'am, now I'll leave the floor open to have your opinion on the topic of women empowerment and the role of women in UN, as well as we'll be more than happy to listen to your journey for being the first female president of the beautiful nation of Ecuador. So yes, the floor is all yours.
Well, I think that there is an evolution about human rights and especially women rights. And of course, I had the opportunity to fight for the rights of human and women in my country, being the first one Minister of Education, the first female Minister of Education in my country, and first female Vice President and President of the Republic. I was also the first General Secretary of the Amazon Cooperation Treaty Organization, and I'm fighting for being the first female General Secretary of United Nations with the support of civil society. I get my nomination by a group called Forward that is based in UK, and it's a political global movement. Well, and I decided to accept the challenge. I don't know what's going to happen because for sure, probably United Nations is not going to open the possibility to do that from the civil society. But it's interesting the road, how we are going on. When you see the landscape of political leadership, it's only less than 10% of women that are leading the countries, like presidents or first ministers. But I think there are a lot of situations that are calling the attention to the people to have this participation in a bigger amount. In Ecuador, for example, since the next elections in 2025, for sure we are going to have or a president or a vice president, because it's the law, the new law, that is mandatory that all the candidates has to be integrated by men and women or women and men. Then it will provide for us the possibility to have always or a president or a vice president, female ones. And in other countries, there's getting probably the same, with the possibilities to be in the Supreme Court, to be on the parliaments, and to be in other situations. Also doing in the private sector, like leaders, CEOs of corporations and business companies.
Right, absolutely. And we also hope that we will going to see more and more women future leaders at various bodies of not only UN, but in private sector as well. So moving on to my next question, ma'am, as you have been the member of many institutions, you have been heading a lot of, I could say, non-governmental institutions as well. So any further projects which you will be working on, which has a social impact? As I was reading about you that you have been, into a lot of social impact activities. So any projects done in the past and future which you want to share with us?
Yeah, well, I am leading since more than 20 years ago an NGO called FIDAL, Foundation for Integration and Development in Latin America. And we work a lot with teachers. And remember, most of teachers are women, because almost 70% of the school and high school teachers are women. Then it impacts a lot in women conditions. And we are training teachers and organizing contests every year to stimulate the self-esteem of the teachers. And it is such a good project. We also are working on STEAM projects and science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, trying to get more girls involved in these activities. Well, I am leading some other organizations. I am the chairman of the honorary board of the International Women Club with headquarters in India. And it is for me a big honor to be part of it. I am also part of another initiative that was born in India with Harbin Arora. She is the leader of the Women Economic Forum, and now she creates another initiative called G100. G100, that it is the idea to get 1 million leaders, women or women leaders all over the world. And I'm in charge of the political chair, global political chair. And it's a big task to get in my side 100 very active political leaders all over the world. And to get this, I am talking with several women all around the world to get this compromise to continue working for women's rights. I am also part of the board of Women Political Leaders. It's an organization with headquarters in Belgium, in Brussels, and I'm part of that board with all other former presidents or former prime ministers in different parts of the world. And it's such an interesting to talk about women's rights and to make measures about how women are growing in political efforts. But I'm a lot also interested in science. And I know for sure that when you see the list of Nobel laureates every year, we see few or very, very little number of female winning the Nobel laureates. And why it is? Because they don't have all the time. Maternity is going across all these about times and dedication. And this is another effort that I want to go in to research, to investigate a little bit more about what's happening in the field of science or in academic fields, because I'm also working in this area. And I'm an author. I write poetry and books for kids and teenagers, and I am taking care of the leading of role of women in this even small short stories, and also talking about nature, environment, how to protect it, describing situations about the protection of nature. And I feel that I am making a road on this because I can impact in kids and also male and female kids. And it's such a pleasure for me to participate and giving speech and lectures all over the world. I will depart next Thursday to Spain, and I will be in Barcelona and Madrid the first time after the pandemic. Well, and I will be in touch with several people, especially young people.
Absolutely, ma'am. And that is so inspiring to hear you and the work which you have done and which you are continuously doing as well. So that's been amazing and exquisite. So moving on to my next question, ma'am, that how crucial you think, as you told about women participation. So how crucial it is in UN as well as, at various other positions, institutions, or in other governmental bodies, because it's been noted that women are much better leaders than men. There is an analysis and statistics which says that. So how crucial is that participation of women in such positions?
Yes, that is, it is very crucial. And you said, I think that I totally agree. When we see the statistics, less than 10% of the leaders in a global sphere, they are women, female. But when you see how they act during the pandemic, these leaders are more effective. Like if you see Germany, or if you see New Zealand or Iceland or Taiwan, you can envision how they deal with this terrible pandemic situation. And also when I see that there is a conflict and there is like a kind of group of people trying to get a solution, if they are only men, it's not so effective. But if you include women in this group of like arbiters or trying to get peace for some part of the world, the conclusions are much better. They last for a longer time than when they are only men. And of course, if you see the statistics about what's happening in the world, we still have a lot of problematic with the situations at home, how the women are treated in homes. I probably can say the risky place in the world for women and for young kids is their own home. And it is very sad to feel that, because when you see femicide and other situations, most of the situations are produced by people that are closer to the victim, like the husband, the people that's living at the same home, the step father or whatever. It is really a pity to think about that. Then my main goal in my life is to get better quality of education, because if you have good quality of education, especially for women, you are going to eradicate this situation, or at least to diminish the impact of what's happening in homes with women and small kids.
Absolutely, that's very rightly said, that if you educate, it's being rightly said that if you educate one woman, you're educating the whole home, you're educating the whole city and town. So completely agree with that. And moving on to my next question, ma'am, that you have been related to education, environment, and being into climate action activist as well. So what do you think that the role of forums like sustainable forums and other projects regarding climate action going on, so how they are being channelized, in achieving the sustainable development goals? So how these forums impact in the process of development?
I understand, but I think that we cannot separate the climate actions with education. You cannot separate it, because it has all to do with education. Of course, you need a framework, like a law or a legal framework, because you need to have laws that protect the environment against all these situations that we are living every day in our countries. With the pandemic, you can see the masks on the sea, and more plastics going around and destroying the environment and causing really very lethal situations in every place. But all has to do with education, because if you know that what's happening with the environment, you know the statistics, you know the disasters that it is causing, the highest level of the sea, the risk that the islands and the coastal territories are having, what's happening with the biodiversity of the oceans, what's happening with the biodiversity of the forest. The deforestation is another problem, but you need to know about it. If you don't know, if you are not getting conscious about what's happening, you are not going to be aware and to take the care about all this that I described. Then environmental efforts and education has to be hand by hand all the time. And it starts at home, of course, with the parents saying to the kids, and not only words, but telling with the example what to do to separate garbage, not to create a lot of waste, to use these products and not the others because they are more eco-friendly and things like that. In terms of education, I know that many times the kids that hear some ideas from the internet or TV or from the teachers, they go home in a reverse situation and say to the parents, listen, we must do that. And it is incredible. But in any case, it's about education, education at home, education in schools, education by the media, to be aware about the risk, the circumstances, and what we can do. Sometimes we are waiting only the action of the governments, but it's not the only thing that we must ask. We have asked ourselves what we are doing, because of course, the government has a lot of duties, but we as a person, as a human being, we need to do a lot of things, not waste the water. For example, when we are brushing our mouth, our teeth, how we can act when we have to make a package and when you waste a lot of paper and we waste a lot of plastics and things like that. It is a personal decision about our habits, and it's so important because it has to be with education.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very right. Rightly said that it's the responsibility of each and everyone, and we should not depend on just blaming the government, but I think we should all, charity begins at home, so we should start from our home itself. All right, ma'am. So I'll just move on to my next question. That I was just listening to your work. I was just reading a lot about you. So being a president is such a, I could say, a very big responsibility. And how can we bring world peace and change via harmony and spirituality? I saw you being associated somewhere with spiritualism, and I was watching your videos. So how can we bring that change in the world with the same?
Well, I am not very religious, but I feel a lot of spirituality, and I respect all the religions on the world. I had the experience to be in some ashrams some long time ago. The first one, I went to Puttaparthi in India, close to Bangalore. And after I went to Rickshaw, and I went to Art of Living, and well, I went to some, and of course I visited religious places in any country that I can do that. And I feel that spirituality is so important because it gives you like a kind of platform to be a better human being. Because religions are based in values. Because when you see most of big religions in the world, you see that they say not to do the bad to other person, to respect, to be honest, not to take the things from the others, things like that. Like can be in a Catholic, I am a Catholic, baptized by my parents. And you can see in the 10 commitments on the rule that we have, but also you can see it in the Quran, or if you in Buddhism, Hinduism, in many religions, you can see this. And this is the spirituality that I think it's needed in the world, not the extremism, not going to the spheres of battling and having wars because of religion, but it's important, the spirituality. And I think it have to be cultured, and it means respect for the others in any sense. In terms, I used to explain it by a neologism, because I think we are in a global world because of technology, because of the environmental issues, situations that we know, even because of financial situations that are linked, then we are global citizens. But in the other hand, we are local, and we have our identity, and the identity is made by what you eat, the food, the cultural efforts, what you dress, the feelings that you develop, and religion, of course. And all that is your identity. If you mix global and local, it's a neologism, call it glocal. And the glocal is maybe the best approach for what we are facing these days. Glocal is fantastic because you can use the tools of the globalization, but maintaining your identity. And this identity means that you are respecting the other's identity, the other's local situations in terms of what they feel, how they look, what they dress, what they believe, and that's it. And then it can be a better world if you respect the others with this local approach.
Absolutely. So it's like you should think global, but you should act local.
Yes, it is true, but you use only one word. That is a neologism. You know that all the languages are evolving because of the circumstances. You didn't use the word internet because it doesn't exist, internet. You never use astronaut when there's not an astronaut. Then the reality forces you to create new words. And that's the reason that I am supporting very hard this global world and this global concept.
It's amazing. I actually wrote it and I'll be using it. It's a very nice analogy of the whole the idea. So, ma'am, as you mentioned, you have been to India, and any memory you want to share with us? Any special memory you hold in India? Any one thing you want to share?
I think because some people doesn't, but I feel that I'm fall in love with India since the beginning. Since I went to visit the places because I love the art, the culture, the spirituality of people in India, because it's so evident for people that came from outside, the foreigners. We feel it in every place. Then I love to be in different places. I had been in Bangalore, in Delhi, in the Pink City also, and in many other places, even where the Ganga River is born in the Himalayas. And I had been in Mumbai, in Kolkata, and well, in many places. And I remember with a special emotion, I had the opportunity to attend a wedding in India, and it was such an impressive 3 days of celebrations, fantastic dances and food, and all the life that I can see in that wedding. It was fantastic. And well, but any time that I visit in India, last time was last year I think it was January of 2020, one of my last trips before the pandemic explodes. And I have really good memories from my visits to India. Fantastic place in world.
Amazing, amazing. I live in Bangalore, and I can easily relate to the feelings. So yes, that's amazing, ma'am.
Yeah,
And
I even have some dresses from India, and sometimes I use it here. And people says, where they are from? Well, I love dresses from India because they are very colorful and fantastic, and with a lot of embroidered and lot of handmade, and the design, it's fantastic, really fantastic.
yes, the sari, the suit. So yes, and
Yeah,
everybody looks amazing,
sari
even
is
if you're
more
not.
difficult to use for me because you get to know how to use sari, and have to be careful not to show your belly and that. It is for me complicated, but the others that are more fashion, new fashion style, and of course with the shawls and all that, it's much easier for me. But it's fantastic, and you have a very good
Right.
designers there also.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, ma'am. And it's such nostalgic feeling, talking about the Indian culture. It's so amazing. So I'll just move on to your book. I was listening somewhere that you're an author as well, and you wrote a book about, I think, your son. And so anything you want to share about that? Anything you want to relate? Yes.
Well, it was a very touching story. I was very young and I had my second kid. I get married when I was 21. Immediately I have my first boy. And the next year I get pregnant again. I get pregnant 5 times in my life. And in the second, when I had Geronimo was his name. Geronimo was a Down syndrome boy. And it was at the beginning a shock because I am talking about 30 years before now. And having a boy or a kid with these circumstances was a shock for the family. My father was a medical doctor, the pediatrics, and he told me about what was happening with my boy. At the beginning, I say, "Why me?" But the second question I ask, "Why not me?" Yeah, maybe I'm prepared for that small kid. And I talked with my husband and the family, and we decided um, to continue taking care of him and like building our lives around him. But unfortunately, after some few months, he got a sickness. He had a problem with the heart and with the lungs and with everything. And he passed away when he was 10 months. And it was a shock that I was thinking at that time that I couldn't survive because losing a kid, a son, it is so terrible that it's very hard to describe the pain. When I lose my baby, I was pregnant again of my next, there's a daughter, Manuela, that now is a diplomat. And when I lose Geronimo, I was thinking that my life was going to an end. But I discovered that for me it was excellent to write about him. It was a kind of catharsis. Then I wrote a book about him, thinking about my own situation, but also thinking about how I can help the others, the parents of babies like my Geronimo. And well, I write it, I show it to my family. Some of them were really happy that I could do that. Others were a little concerned about why you are telling everybody that you have a kid like him. Say, why not? After a while, it was published with a medical laboratory, and the book at the beginning was a present for families that the doctors give to them after it was a literary success because many people wanted to read it. When I wrote the book, I was not thinking that teenagers or young people were going to read it. But for my surprise, it was declared textbook in schools in New York because it was published also in English. And a lot of kids and teenagers are reading it here in Ecuador, or because it was translated to Portuguese, to Italian, to English, as I said. It was translated into Braille, the language for the people that cannot see. And
Blind.
well,
Yes.
it was blind people, yes. And it was a story that when I went, I go around my country after the book was published and was very popular. I feel that many people come to me and didn't ask me, you are a minister, you're a president. They tell to me, you are the mom of Geronimo, or you are the author of Geronimo. And it was for me such an emotion that it is fantastic. And they start to talk me about their stories. Then I take these stories and I make, because they told me many times, I have a Geronimo at home. It was not that they have a kid called Geronimo, but a kid with the same circumstances of Geronimo. Then I wrote another part of the book that is the other Geronimos. Then it's one book called Geronimo and other call it the other Geronimos. Well, where I describe the stories of other families, of other kids, or bigger persons that had not only Down syndrome, it could be autism, or it could be paralysis or something like that. But it for me was such an extraordinary experience that in my mind, the kid and the book are the same, And I talk about him more than my other, because I have three more grown persons, two lawyers and a diplomat. And I'm very proud of them. And I have 7 grandkids also. And I'm looking how they are growing and being part of their lives. And it is such a fantastic experience. You don't have to resign your maternity. You don't have to resign your family values to be successful in other fields. That's a message that I want to transmit to all the girls and young persons that are watching this program or listening. You don't have to resign anything. You don't have to resign your activism, political activism. You don't have to resign your desire to be a professional. You don't have to resign because you are a woman. You must handle, and you can combine in a very successful way all these situations. Remember one thing: women, we are multitasking, and it is fantastic, and it led us to do things, many things at the same times, in a very successful way.
Absolutely, ma'am. And it was so inspiring to hear you today. And we'll be podcasting this whole session amongst our college, our professors, and everybody in India. And I'm sure whosoever will be listening this, they'll be, I'm really like kind of emotional right now listening to this. And yes, it's such an inspiration to hear this from you. Ma'am, so moving on to my few last questions, it's about like what kind of solutions we can take for the increasing participation of women in UN. And
for the increase in what? For the increase in what? I didn't hear the last.
For increase the participation of women leaders at UN, because it's being said that since a long time UN has not a female secretary general. It's always being a male, and some I could say campaigns were going on to have more female on the table. So yes, what can we do to increase that participation?
Three things, Setu. One is education. It's in the bottom of everything. You have to educate women and to demonstrate themselves that it's possible to do things. Second is self-esteem. You have to cultivate your self-esteem, because if you don't believe in yourself, you cannot do things that you want. And it's very important to stimulate small girls, to say them and to teach them that they are in the possibility to do the things that they want. And then self-esteem is very important, because I met many girls and said, but could I? Can I? They are plenty of doubts, and I think they have to be more empowered. And the third thing is the law, because it's important, and we have to fight to have the same rights by law. And of course, maybe I can quote another. It is the cultural efforts, because sometimes people are saying that because of culture, because of the tradition, you have to do the same things. No, it is not true. You have to go forward, because culture is not a thing that they can stop you to do the things. No. you never find that culture says that these things has to be done in this way and not in the other way for women. Maybe some traditions, but we have to break this glass ceiling and to do the things that we are aware and we are
Right.
prepared to do. Then maybe the fourth is cultural and tradition. We have to break some ceilings and to demonstrate to ourselves first that we are on the road and that we can do many things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's education, self-esteem, and we have to, break that glass
Yeah,
ceiling. So
and the
yes,
law.
very, very right.
And law. You have to have the framework of the
And the
law
law.
because,
Yes.
and that's very important because you can modify a lot of things with law. Because if you
Right.
say parity is one thing that we must have when there are elections, it's a law, and the parties, the political parties, has to respect it. Or if they say in corporations you have to have the same number of men and women in the main positions, it's a law. You have to respect it. But the others, education, be prepared, self-esteem, and breaking all these glass ceilings.
Very rightly said, ma'am. It happened with girls. It happened with females most of the time that we try to feel that can we do it. We are not really sure, but I think if like self-esteem, as you mentioned. So yes, if we believe in ourselves, we can do it. So yes. And ma'am, moving on to my another question, what do you think is the role as youngster? Like we have this platform of HNMU and we do a lot of projects. So how youngsters can participate in changing the world and can participate maybe as a diplomat, as a UN someday. So anything about us?
Well, you have the tools that we didn't have when we were younger. We have this possibility of communicate yourself. You have the possibility to research about anything you want, because in the past you had to go to a library and maybe to wait for one to give you a book to make a research. No, you now can do everything. Then you have the tools. Then you can conquer the world. And especially you can change the world. The bad situations that probably we created in the past generations, you can improve it with more possibilities to educate yourself, to more possibilities to be in contact with others, because in the past you have to wait to travel and it was so hard to travel. I remember the first time that I go into an airplane was when I have 19 years old. Not before, because it was not a possibility and probably not the need for my parents to do that for me. But now I saw all the people moving and doing that. Of course, now we have restrictions because of the pandemic. But before pandemic, we were in the possibility to move, to do things, and to research and to be in contact with other persons. The question is how we can use these tools. And the answer is we have to use the tools for good, not for bad situations, because the technology is an instrument and you can use this instrument for good or for bad. Like I can have this for contact you, the cell phone, or I can have this to throw to your head, and it's I'm going to hit you and to have you in problems. Or we can use it for research. Okay, good thing to make my homework, and I can go to deep internet and get really bad things. Yes, it depends how you use the tools, but you have the tools more than we had in the past.
Right, absolutely. Very rightly said that it depends on us how we use the, technology, how we use the information. And yes, definitely, ma'am. So, ma'am, now we are at the end of the session. This is the, I guess, the last question. So, any message for the budding women leaders of the world, women entrepreneurs of the world? I myself, me and my team, we have started our own venture. So I'm one of the, I could say, women entrepreneurs. And so yes, any message for all those ladies and any message for our team as well?
Well, I think I already gave a kind of message that you must believe in yourself. Men and women. It's not only for women, it's for men also, because if we want to change society, we have to do it together. And that's not that we in the past had the bad situations for women, and it's going to be on the reverse sense that now the men has to suffer. No, it's not. We have to do it together, and that's the message. We have to believe in ourselves. We have to believe in the power of education and the power of the example that we can give, because everybody of us can be an example for others. Then be a good example for the others. I think it could be the better way to change the world. Not give up about anything, and fight for your rights in a proper way, and use the tools and the instruments that the technology provide us, without forgetting the values. Go on, don't forget the values, and make yourself a good example for the others.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll be taking all these notes with me today and will be sharing amongst all. And it's a very rightly said that be an example for others, help others who need help. And I think that's how we can create a better world. So thanks a lot, Rosalia ma'am. It was my honor and privilege to have a session with you. And I'm hoping one day to meet you in person as well, maybe we'll come to Ecuador, such a lovely nation.
Yes. Yes, we are going to meet for sure, or there or here. And I want to congratulate you for these initiatives and for the enthusiasm that you are having for all this. Thank you very much, and have an excellent day and week.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you from us.